Hey, I'm Sapphire.
Want to hear something scary? Don't invite a duppy.
The following story was inspired by Chan. I live in Jamaica. Here, everyone has ghost stories, or as we call them, duppy stories. My obsession with duppy began when I was 11, when I was at my grandma's funeral. There was nobody in attendance except me, my little sisters Tanya and Nina, my mom, and my uncle Louis. They lowered my grandma's coffin into the ground, and my uncle placed an upside-down shrub on the coffin, roots pointed up. I looked up at my mom, who was staring intently at the grave. "Mom, what is that?" She was stone-faced and said nothing. My uncle Louis put his hand on my shoulder. "Little Chan, when people die, the good soul goes up to heaven and the bad soul stays in the ground. After 3 days, the bad soul's shadow rises up and walks the earth as a duppy." He continued, "If the shrub faces down, the shadow gets confused and stays put. But if the shrub faces right side up," he shook his head and clicked his tongue. My mother became enraged. "Stop telling her that shit," she hissed. From that day on, duppy were all I could think about. I followed my Uncle Louis around, asking him to tell me more duppy stories. "Duppy?" He laughed. "They're as real as me or you, but they're all bad. They're mean. They can grab you, hurt you, or worse. Don't look for duppy, and never ever invite a duppy to come to you." "But are there any cute duppy?" I asked. "You wouldn't like them. They stink of death, and they have no face, just wide, grinning teeth." He made a scary face, and I screamed. Then we both laughed hysterically. The next day, I skipped through the graveyard carrying a basket of flowers and placed them one by one in front of 13 tombstones. With each one I placed, I said, "Duppy, duppy, come to me." A week later, the worst possible thing happened. Uncle Louis was killed in town by a mugger. The culprit got away and was never found. And just like that, we were burying another relative. I was given the job of placing the shrub on the coffin. I thought about my Uncle Louis and how I would do anything to see him again. I placed the shrub on his coffin and uttered under my breath, "Duppy, duppy, come to me." We inherited my grandma's house from Uncle Louis, and my sister's mom and I moved in after the funeral. There was a coldness about my grandma's house. It was sad and smelled weird. The lights in some of the rooms didn't turn on, and what daylight came in through the windows was dimmed by the large trees outside. My mom became weirdly needy to me and my sisters. I would walk Tanya and Nina home from school and find my mom sitting on the veranda, waiting for us to get home. She smiled and welcomed us, but her eyes wore a secret pain. I think she didn't want to be alone inside the house. At night, the wind had begun to bellow and shake the walls. My mom would cook meals, and they would become rotten when she turned her back on them. She dragged a cot into our room to sleep and abandoned her own room altogether. Then one day, my mom confronted me. She asked me, "Chan, what direction did you plant the shrub on top of Uncle Louis?" I stammered. The way I was supposed to, with the roots pointing up." I lied. "I see," she said with a calm fury. Pangs of guilt stung my skin. Later that night, the wind got so loud that the rattling of the roof woke me up. My mom and my sisters were sound asleep. I groped through the darkness to the kitchen and poured myself a glass of water. On my way back to the room, the wind built in intensity, and the door to my mom's bedroom began to swing rapidly open and shut. I was too curious to turn away. I peeked through the door, and there was just my mom's empty bed and personal things she hadn't bothered to remove. The trees thrashed violently outside the window. I took a few steps forward until I was standing at the center of the room. The wind erupted into a chorus and whistled louder than ever. I got a knot in my stomach as I smelled something rotten. I heard my own teeth chattering, and my curiosity turned to pure dread. The closet door creaked ajar, and what I saw turned my legs to quivering jelly. A hand with long, pointy fingers curled around the closet door. My hand softened. I heard my water glass shatter on the ground. My body pivoted weakly towards the window. The moon came out from behind the clouds and twisting trees and revealed 13 silhouettes standing in the room with me. One for every flower I placed in the graveyard. They bore featureless faces and grinning mouths. Too stunned to run, I fell terrified to the ground, fumbling and clambering awkwardly to the exit on my hands, elbows, and knees. Bony fingers clawed at me and tried to pull me back. They scratched my skin as I struggled loose. A hand grabbed my ankle and almost yanked me away until I kicked for my life. Trembling, I finally scrambled through the door and slammed it shut behind me. The wind moaned in concert with labored gasps as the sound of hands battered the door. I began to weep as I nervously ran back down the hall. Mom, Tanya, Nina, we need to leave this house now. I opened the door to the bedroom where my family slept. In an instant, I felt my whole world drop away beneath me. There on the floor were the lifeless bodies of Tanya, Nina, and my mom. Above them stood a shadowy figure. It was my Uncle Louis, but his warm eyes and comforting smile were gone, now replaced with a terrifying grin and unearthly stench. He stepped towards me and said,
Duppy, Duppy, come to me.
Want more Something Scary? You can hear more stories over on the Something Scary podcast, available for free on Apple Podcasts or wherever you listen to your favorite shows. The links are in the description below. If you'd like to submit a story, send me an email at somethingscary@snarled.com. Like and share this video if it gave you the chills. And don't forget to subscribe to Snarled and turn on the bell for notifications. And if you dare, follow me on social media. Until next time, sweet dreams.